Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Shark Trust proudly presents to you, hailing from Halifax in West Yorkshire and weighing in at 265 pounds, the hard-rocking, the body-popping, the electrifying, the fat-supplying, the world's only heavy metal marine biologist. Give it up for the Blowfish! There's an intro for you.
We're keeping that in. Tom, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for traveling all the way down here and spending the day with us. To get started, can you tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and why you called the Blowfish as well?
Well, I am Tom the Blowfish Hose, the world's only heavy metal marine biologist, as you may or may not know. What do I do? Not sure. I think at this point I'm just a mouth with a beard, but a mouth with a beard that loves everything fishy, you know, and of course, pinnacle of fishy is sharks. So I'm a mouthpiece for those creatures that don't speak. And as far as the Blowfish is concerned, as far as that name is concerned, it's the worst origin story ever. Would not get a comic book series out of it. It was simply that when I was at university, I joined the surf club, and as is often the way with these things, first years, we'll get hoodies, you know the score, we're the full jazz. Okay, yeah, cool, no worries, I'll have a hoodie, please. And everyone's getting like aquatic nicknames put on them. What do you want? And I said, well, I don't know, because at this point I'm having the conversation with the bloke through the window of his kitchen. I'm not even in his house, I'm talking to him through the window. And I said, I don't know. I said, look, I keep pufferfish at home, so call me Pufferfish. And he went, yeah, cool, no worries. And I handed him through the window the little passport photo from a stamp. And he said, you don't look like a pufferfish, you look like a blowfish. Because I was like that, and that was it. That stuck. So when I decided to, people started calling me the Blowfish then anyway. But when I decided to go down the proper, we call it science communication now. It wasn't called that then. But when I decided to go down that route, the Blowfish was a much better, catchier, fresher thing than just Tom Hurd, you know. But, even now, everyone will call me Fish. I mean, you can call me Tom if you like, but most people just call me Fish.
Were you good at surfing? Are you good at surfing?
No, terrible. Awful. Proper surfing, as in with, the big long sticks. No, I went out a couple of times. I got the balance of a one-legged seagull. It's not good. Just thump, thump, thump. But I still surf a lot now, but just with Cornish belly boards or good old-fashioned shark biscuits. Because if you don't have balance, and also the Cornish belly boards, don't know if you've ever seen one.
The modern ones.
Yeah, only about so kind of height. You can catch anything on them. So rather than worrying about, it needs to be, 6 foot and clean, left to right point break with a good shoulder. Blah, blah. No, bellies will catch anything. You see a tiny ripple on a lake, a belly will catch that, and you can get some mad surfing out of it. There's been plenty of times when me and the missus have gone down to a beach and there are surfers there in the lineup and they'll get one or two waves, and she and I are getting every wave we go for. So yeah, I recommend Cornish belly boards big time.
I think I need to start that.
They're brilliant.
Hetty and Jack go surfing, and Hetty's amazing and catches everything, and me and Jack kind of just sit there, miss every wave, and usually don't even catch any. Yeah,
well, you're still a long way away from me. I mean, it was a good thing that I gave up surfing. But the Cornish belly boards, 10 out of 10. I would name a company that I use, but I can't, obviously, for I don't want to promote anyone. So
you can name a company of boards.
Dick Pierce belly boards.
I've got a sticker of them on my surfboard.
Nice. Get one of their belly boards. Go in the back of the car. Yeah. Dick Pierce belly boards, the best of the best.
Back to the sharks. Mm-hmm. When did you know it was sharks?
Sharks came in through the back door, consensually, obviously. But when I was younger, I was cruelly tricked into watching Jaws as like a 7 or 8 year old. I was told, it's Crocodile Dundee. And like, yeah, okay, sat down. No, it wasn't. It was Jaws. Absolutely terrified me. Really, really terrified me. This is a story I've told a million times, but it's, it just blew me out the water. It's actually worth pointing out, I've still not watched Jaws from credits to credits. I can't do it. I've read the book and I've probably seen the entire film in clips, but I've not watched it from opening to closing because
Because it still scares you?
it fires something up in the back of my brain.
Like repressed trauma.
Oh, big time. But that was the thing. So, I was now terrified of sharks, or particularly the great white. That's what I was scared of, so scared of it. And so at 8, 9, 10, I don't know why, and I've always likened it to if you have like an ulcer inside your mouth, you keep hurting it, you've got something you keep going at it. And that was me. I was watching documentaries on fish and sharks. I was getting books on sharks. I remember on some of them, I'd be like really carefully like turn the page because I was scared to see it. And I don't know why. That fear drove me to fascination. And I just started getting obsessed with sharks and everything about sharks. And by the time I was 12 or 13, I knew more about sharks then than probably most people, average people, would ever learn about sharks. Now, my old man is a vet. My mum, they worked together as, vet and essentially vet nurse for donkey's years up in Yorkshire, and I went out with them all the time. So animals were just de rigueur. I was always going to do something with animals, and I thought I'll be a vet following the father's footsteps, that kind of thing. And they sort of saw how keen I was on sharks and fish, and they're like, do you want to, because they could also see that the veterinary world wasn't going to be as James Herriot as it was. They could see it changing, and said, well, think about marine biology instead. And it was when I was 13, we went to a certain aquarium in Florida, which will not be named for obvious reasons, and that was the first time I ever actually saw a shark in real life, as opposed to on TV. And, even then it was in the aquarium. And I went through the shark tunnel, and remember mum and dad had gone through before me, because I was just, and then like looking at them all, just amazed. And I came out the other side and I said to them then and there, I'm going to be a marine biologist. And I did. That was it. So I just went from then on.
I love that. Do you think your like that early kind of like almost fear of sharks, which then kind of led you to learn more and more, is why you're in science communication and teach people about sharks now? Do you think that had a factor?
No. I originally was going to go down the full academia route. I was going to do that. I was going to save the sharks. I knew that was my plan. I was going to save the sharks, but I was going to do it with, writing papers that affected policy, that had, a real big effect. And it was in 2005 with actually, an old shark trust boy, Richard Pearce. I went out with Richard Pearce on one of his expeditions that he ran, and this was halfway through my university career as well. An expedition to Croatia, to the Adriatic, to look for sharks there. And the whole time we were there, I think they spotted just one. And we were chumming like 24/7, trying to get things going. Nothing. One shark. And I came back from that and I thought, this is mad. We need to do something now. I need to do something now, not then, now. And if I do, if I was lucky enough to become a doctor, a professor, or whatever, I'd be writing papers that the 10 people that can actually get past the firewall to read them would probably already agree with me, of which government wouldn't listen to me anyway. But I was always quite loud. I have a very good voice. Sound men love me, and sound women as well. Sound operators absolutely love me. And I thought, well, forget this. Rather than talking to this tiny little audience that already agrees with me, I'm going to talk to the bigger world. And that's where it kind of started. So it was in 2005 that I thought, okay, yeah, I'm going to give this a go. I didn't really know how or anything really at that point. But I always said, if it came down to it, I'd happily stand in the street and just yell at people walking by, with one of those big sandwich boards. The end is nice, save the sharks, that kind of thing. But when I got into whatever this is, science communication with that handle didn't exist. Obviously, there were those people out there. There were people in outreach centres of all different kinds, woodland and wildlife rehabilitation and zoos, who were being science communicators. We just didn't know it existed at that point. And initially, as well as creating show reels to try and get production companies interested, was doing a lot of like school visits and science show visits, and sort of developed through there, while at the same time trying to get into the sort of the TV world to get people to recognize you, take a chance on you, and that kind of thing.
Now, I think with those early bits, I feel like a lot of people remember. I used to be a Shark Trust member back in the day, and your stuff was always in Shark Focus. It was on the Shark Trust website as like the heavy metal marine biologist, which is cool.
Yep.
Why are you called the heavy metal marine biologist? Other than
yes. Well, I mean, I love heavy metal. I'm a big metalhead, and I don't know. I suppose at some point, when I started off, no one in the world of science communication, in the world of certainly in natural history in the UK, no one looked like me, and that bothered me because there are loads of people I know who look just like me, who absolutely love wildlife, but wildlife back then, and I think to a certain extent still now, is primarily sold to those who are very clean cut. You know, it's the North Face group, it's the, you know, the chinos, that kind of stuff, the kids can have it. Whereas there's this huge swathe. I mean, you name, if you saw a dude with a ton of tattoos, big beard and piercings, and you said, I bet that guy's got a snake at home, you'd probably be right, because they love animals. And you know, all the people that I work with, they're way more like me than they are this sort of clean-cut, very neat presenter. So I didn't understand why people weren't talking to those people. Why were they just being ignored? Why were they not being represented? And so I think that's where, you know, it first came from. But I've used that heavy metal thing, obviously, in terms of my on stage persona, not my on screen persona, but on stage, because you have different, you sort of wear different hats depending on what rooms you're in. And I do, you know, heavy metal when I'm on stage. When I'm on TV, I think it's just how I look, because obviously the beard, which, you know, is an excellent beard. We've got to be honest. Yeah, it's like the bedazzling of one as well.
The Shark Trust pin.
It's good, yeah. It's always come out like this. Oh, and then as well, I don't quite know how, but I have ended up being what I believe to be the only person alive to ever play live heavy metal to sharks, not once, but twice. Once in South Africa and once here in the UK. So, you know, you stick all that together and, you know, heavy metal marine biologist, the world's only. And it's a Highlander thing as well. If someone else comes along and says, oh, I'm a heavy metal marine biologist as well, we have to fight. And obviously Sacred Ground is an aquarium, can't fight on sacred ground, but otherwise we have to fight. And the one who slews the other, you take their swim bladder and you take that power into yourself, and then you become an even hairier marine biologist.
I love how much you've thought about this.
Oh yeah, when I reach my final form, I'm just going to look like a Wookiee.
Is it like Game of Thrones style? You know, like when the cows lose a battle, they get their ponytail thing cut off. Do they cut the bottom of your beard off?
If they did,
yeah. If they beat you,
hell to pay if that happened. Yeah, I'm going to go down fighting before that happens. Oh yeah. It's like Samson and Delilah. This is, you know, this is where the power comes from, right? Yeah.
When you were playing your heavy metal music to the Sharks,
yes,
was it your own music? Was there a particular song and what happened?
Well, we gave it the full works, because obviously this idea of sharks responding to heavy metal wasn't unique to us. It had been a study done by, I believe, by an Australian researcher that had showed that AC/DC brought sharks in, or you know, gave them something to investigate. And as we know, it's that, you know, that that you get of a fish's tail, you know, as it's dying, that kind of noise, and then you get that in metal, you know, that on the drums. So it was that thing. When we were in South Africa, we played a lot of stuff on the boat. We were jamming. We were playing some. I met up with a band out there. We played some of their stuff. We played a bit of everything, really. But what we did was we turned up from what we were plugging into the water, we turned down all the treble and turned up all the bass. So that was coming through clearer. And here, when I did it here in the UK, again, same thing, tried lots of different things. And in the end, the best stuff was just that, da-da-da-da, with a bit of a gap. And both times we did it, it worked, with a caveat. Obviously, the amount of sound that we can create from the speaker is limited in terms of its pull. You need a shark roughly within that area to come and investigate it to begin with. And of course, using a chum slick, you can cover many nautical miles, and if the wind and the currents are in your favor, that can go for a long way. So, I always say to people that, sharks kind of, their senses work on a like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 system, the first one being sort of scent, and then, they might then go on to hearing, and then they'll go on to sight, and then they go on to the sort of gustation in a way, and then, which obviously mixes with scent, but and then finally the sort of the shortest distance, you've got the ampullae and that electroreceptor sense. But of course that doesn't work because they can feel geomagnetic data. Let's not worry about that now. So we got sharks to the area with chum. But then once they were in, we stopped the chum. And every time they would come up and investigate the speaker. And if you know what you're looking at in terms of shark behavior and how they approach the speakers, you could tell it was investigatory. It wasn't just when you get, a shark chomping on a cage because the cage is giving off a signal, and it's, they're nosing it, especially when we did it here with the blue sharks. Because, blue sharks are incredibly inquisitive anyway. But the speaker, is this big. If they weren't going for that, they wouldn't go for it. There's so much more going along around them, and they come up and hit a speaker like that and nose around it and all that stuff. So it was really cool to be able to do that, and they definitely respond to it.
Do you think, do you think they'd have a favorite if you looked up this blue shark's Spotify, he's accidentally connected to the speaker, what would be playing? What do you reckon?
I think just for that nice, simple, that simple kind of chunky riffage, you could do a lot worse than a bit of industrial metal. And, a bit of Rammstein probably would go down quite well. You don't want anything too complicated. You don't want to be going down, the sort of, route. That's no, he wants something, a dun, 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 so maybe a bit of early Metallica. He'd be, they pick some good stuff. But the thing to remember as well is that this is, I love too, to add to that, is studies that have been done on sharks and sound have shown that sharks of a given species will react differently to the same sound depending on age and size. So it's like all of us, our music changes, as we grow older. So, a small shark, if it hears a big sound, will be like, no way. But then the same species of shark, but older, hears the same sound and thinks, oh, that sounds like something I could eat. So yeah, they their music will, their music tastes change over time.
They're just in a phase.
Yeah, you get the emo sharks as well with the hair coming across.
Sadly, I was one of them as well. So this series, we're looking at living with sharks. So it's kind of like human coexistence, whether that's in the future or it's happening now as well, and how we do that to ensure that shark conservation measures basically don't go back. And one of the massive themes that's come out that seems really important is people knowing more about sharks and understanding them, and that's one of the most important things of how you can actually live with sharks. Now you've done that with, all of the stuff you do, plus you've got your TV series as well. When did you go from doing heavy metal research with sharks to becoming what we call a science communicator today?
I think I was a science communicator from the start. I have no problem saying this whatsoever. I have always stood on the shoulders of giants. I don't have a paper to my name. I'm not a master's. I'm not a doctorate. I am super lucky to be able to read peer-reviewed papers and take, that tertiary level of science and translate it into something you can say at the pub or something you can say while you're waiting at the bus stop. That's my skill. The people that do that work, that will always be their work, and I will always, champion them. It's not about me; it's about what they've done. I'm just a translator. That's all I'm doing. And I've been extremely lucky to be able to work with people that have huge sets of knowledge and experience. And again, I can listen to what they say, and I can then explain that in an understandable way for whomever it is. You can pitch it to a kid, you can pitch it to an adult, you can pitch it to a family in the middle. But I think I've always done that, really, because when I qualified as a marine biologist, I can't really think of any real marine biology that I've done that wasn't charity work, i.e. stuff I got paid for. And other than that, I've done, while I've been chasing the blowfish kind of dream and keeping that going, I've done loads of random jobs. But yeah, always, look at the stuff, I've done with the Shark Trust, from very early doors, making some videos with them, doing, the writing in the Pups magazine and whatnot. Any time that I could tell people something about sharks or fish or the oceans, I have done. And thinking about moving forwards with sharks, we just need to keep that up. I think something that all the sharks did, which is on Netflix, you should watch it. Something that all the sharks did was finally show people. There were sharks that were on that show that they've been known to science and people have dived with them and all that stuff. That was the first time they've ever been on television. They've been known for years. It wasn't like, oh, new scientific. No. That's the first time they've ever been shown on television because they weren't one of the big five. Yeah. And I think the problem is, for every one shark that somebody in the street knows, there's probably 100, at least 100, that they don't know. And they don't know about how they're filling, crucial roles in the ecosystem, either in deep sea environments, coastal environments. It's always amazing when you tell people, oh yeah, we've got sharks around the UK, and like, what, really? Like, yeah, a couple of big ones as well. And so I think we need to definitely continue promoting the science and these guys that are working at the coalface. Keep doing that. I will happily take what they've done, make sure they are known for it, and disseminate the goodness. That's what we're all about, spreading it nice and even.
I think even for people that, like, I like to think of myself as like quite informed about different species of sharks and stuff like that. I didn't even know there was a leopard cat shark until I watched all the sharks. Yeah, nice. Which I thought, I was like, I should probably know that. I should probably know that one.
No, this is something that I there was a great phrase, wasn't it? It's probably a Confucius thing. The whole, oh dear, what is this called? This is a well-known graph, which is that the more you know, the less you think you know. I've said that in a terrible way. The idea being that you're probably like me in the fact that I would consider myself shark expert, but I'm not the shark expert. There are people out there that know more than me, and there are people out there that know more than me that don't know what I know, and vice versa, and everything else in between. So we should always be in a position to learn something new. So I think it's like the stigma around that of, I've had people before try and trip me up where I'm terrible with ray identification. Awful. I know the good ones. I know the good ones, not the bad ones. No, I'm terrible with ray identification. I don't know why, just not good at it. And I had someone try and trip me up on camera by saying, but you probably don't know what this is. And I just said, yeah, I don't. I'm really bad with ray identification because that's not my specialty. My specialties are functional morphology and behavior. So that's what I'm good at. And, I've got mates who are specialists in great whites who know nothing about tiger sharks, who know nothing about basking sharks, but they are top tier great whites. I think the big problem is this kind of, we get it in all areas of society and work, but people not willing to admit what they don't know. We should all admit what we don't know and all admit that we could learn something new. I work with a researcher who said that the spines on stingrays were made out of keratin, i.e. fingernail. And I said, that's not true. It's dentine. It's a modified scale. And this is someone that runs a shark charity. They just got that bit wrong. Great. Now they don't.
Yeah.
We don't benefit by getting oh, I know more than you. I know more than you. No, who cares? Tell me what you know. I'll tell you what I know. We all know more. We can go out and tell more people stuff. Because, I mean, there'll be stuff I've read in a book when I was 13 that in my, over the years I've got wrong, or I'm not saying it right anymore. There's no harm in not knowing something. The harm is not asking. That's the big problem. The harm is not being willing to say, you know what, guys, this isn't my speciality. And the best people I've worked with, be them researchers or divers or just shark mad people, the best ones are the ones that go, I don't know about that. Because they're the ones that are willing to listen, and they can apply what they know to what you've told them and expand on it. But the people, I think we get it on all lines of work as well. The people are just like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. They're the ones that always come a cropper because they don't know what they're doing, because no one can know exactly what they're doing. We should always be, wiggling and learning and wiggling.
And learning. When you were saying that, I can't remember what show it is, but because of the view I've got now, I pictured Jason Momoa, and he's on the phone. He's like, I don't know, but I'll do everything I can to find out for you. Something like that. But I can't remember what the film was.
Oh, yeah, I know, yeah. Oh, that's going to bother me as well now, yeah.
That's all I picture in my head.
Oh, no, we're going to have to just stop and think what that is. Oh, yeah. Okay, all right, we'll come back to that. Circle back round to that.
On this journey of knowledge and becoming who you are now, how did you go from all of that to then being on TV? And we spoke before we started recording, and you're also on Blue Peter, which is very cool for someone who used to watch it as a kid.
Well, Blue Peter was where I started. So I got into this presenter-y, science communication-y, whatever you want to call it, thing at kind of like the worst possible time, which was the end of the big 90s boom of everyone got a TV show, and the start of these kind of dynasties in terms of presenters that had cut their teeth when anyone could get a TV show, and then commissioners were like, well, we know you, so we're just going to stick with you. So it's always, for me, it's always been a hard industry to break into. It's even harder now. And also, it's gone from a situation where when I was growing up, you could be a full-time TV presenter. And now, unless you're doing something like, I don't know, BBC Breakfast or Good Morning on ITV or whatever, unless you're literally doing it Monday to Friday, you can't just be a full-time TV presenter anymore unless you've got a lot of funds stashed away, unless you're one of the very few that are guaranteed the same quite lucrative payments, and the next people coming up don't get that, and it doesn't happen. So that's the sort of the state of play as it is now. But when I started, the idea was you made a show reel, which I went out and filmed with a friend of mine, and I filmed so many. I've done and some of them were awful. But it was a way to, learn. So we filmed all these show reels, and then what I did was I would send them off I'd post them on DVDs. That's how it was. You'd post them on DVDs to all these different production companies and chase them up with the emails. So I had like an email chase list, and every Monday I would come to this list and I'd have the name of the production company, when I last emailed them, when they may or may not have had a DVD, who I was speaking to, of some notes about it. And this list was as long as you like. And I would email them and have you seen this? And you just chase it for meetings, development meetings, all that kind of stuff. And just push it. And I filmed some, because that was the other thing as well, was to keep filming, keep getting better, keep getting, used to it. And it was actually filming here with the Shark Trust. I contacted and said, look, can we come and do some filming with you? Can we go out and do this, that, and the other? And we filmed the whole thing about the egg cases. We filmed like the super long version, and then produced like the full long version, and then 2 shorter versions about what to look for and what egg cases were. And that was the best bit of filming we did, because we'd learned everything along the way. We got better at editing. And again, this wasn't the way people do it now, where you can edit stuff on your phone. It was we were doing it on tape, and then getting it off there and uploading it here, and it was such a nightmare. But it was off the back of those videos that we produced for the Shark Trust that I sent into CBBC, and they said, "Oh, we've got a slot coming up on Blue Peter to talk about Amazonian animals. What do you know about them?" I was like, "Well, obviously I'm a marine biologist. That's where my expertise is, but I've done a lot of stuff with herps." So I was like, "Yeah, of course, I know about snakes and inverts and all that kind of stuff." And that's where it started. So that was my first break. Was doing it was probably an 8-minute segment, if that, broken into 2 4-minute sections on Blue Peter. And that's where it all started. I went back to Blue Peter numerous times over the years because, again, that was the sort of perceived way of doing things, was you cut your teeth in kids. And as I say, this was still hangover from the 90s. So you'd cut your teeth in kids and then you'd go from there. And yeah, just sort of went from there, kept doing more and more stuff. And then was doing schools and science communication, science fairs on as well. And just, again, developing, making more contacts, getting more meetings, pushing, and got to, I was thrown a bit of a hospital pass. I signed on for a show called The Cool Stuff Collective, which was like a magazine style show on CITV. And I thought, we're on for this, because the show was all about cool stuff. So it was gadgets and computer games. I'm like, this is brilliant. I love gadgets and computer games. I've got tons of toys and I play loads of computer games. This is going to be amazing. What I didn't know was it had done 2 series already and then had been slapped by Ofcom, because the guy that had originally done it, they considered him like being overtly like promoting of the games, like playing them and not being neutral enough and saying, "Oh, this is brilliant, that kind of thing." So when I came along, they changed it so that we didn't do any of the reviewing. We had school kids, like 8-9-year-olds, well known for their ability to string together good, coherent sentences. They would play the game and we would have to try and interview them about what they thought of the game. And it was like pulling teeth. And that was a real shocker. I remember doing that and being so demoralized by it. And the production company in it was very, very cliquey. I obviously didn't fit in with them, so I was quite isolated from them. So it was quite a tough gig. And I remember thinking, do I really want to do this? But got through it, finished it off, never looked at it again, thank God. And that was then yet another brick in the wall. And built from that, from there, I went on and did some stuff with the BBC, did 2 series of Fishing Impossible with the BBC. I've done stuff with Discovery Canada, Animal Planet, Channel 4. I was animal wildlife expert on Sunday Brunch for quite a while. Oh yeah, and just kept building, doing Shark Week stuff, done that for multiple years now. Yeah, and then the last sort of great pinnacle was obviously the Netflix show, which I hosted, All the Sharks. So it's an interesting journey, and you'd never quite know where it's going. But I try and think now. All I try and do now is make sure that we are telling a good story about the creatures. That's what it is. And realistically, probably the biggest thing I've done is certainly All the Sharks. But the best thing I've done was my own series, which we did 2 of, with Off the Fence, a production company that sadly now doesn't exist anymore. And that was called Ocean Wonders. And that's my show. So I went to Off the Fence and said, look, I just want to do this show where I'm just talking about critters. And believe it or not, they went, yeah, okay, we'll give that a go. We took it to a channel, one in America. And they went, yeah, we'll make that. And that was it. They were like, okay, what do you want to talk about? I was like, I want to talk about this. And they were like, yeah, great, knock yourself out. And that was it. So you can see annoyingly, it didn't get UK airing. So it airs in America and it airs like quite a few places worldwide, but it doesn't air over here, which is really irritating. But that was amazing to be able to do the show that was my show.
Yeah.
Through and through, and just be able to talk constantly just about this or that, the other. I want to talk about how narwhal tusks work. I want to talk about how tiger shark teeth work. I want to talk about, and they're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. That was cool.
That's cool, having that kind of freedom.
Yeah. So that might not have been the biggest thing that I've done, but doing that was great because then in a way, the whole being a TV presenter thing, that was kind of the box ticked.
Yeah.
So like now, while obviously I'm still presenting and doing my work, that in a way everything now is like an even better bonus.
Yeah.
It's sort of completed. I'm in New Game Plus now. I've completed the game, 100%ed it, and now I'm in New Game Plus. So that's where I stand.
And if we land with All the Sharks, which is like an absolute hit, I think we've all watched it. Every time we go to events, people are talking about it. Do you want to talk about your role on that? What is the show? What's the aim of it?
So All the Sharks is the first ever wildlife competition show. Don't believe there's been anything like it. Certainly it's one of a kind in terms of its format, and it's a cross really between Race Across the World or I think it's Race Across the World.
Race Across the World,
yeah. So it's a cross between Race Across the World and Pokemon Snap, or I don't know, like some kind of bingo safari idea. And we had these numerous teams and took them to these different locations where they were given a scorecard that showed them a shark and how many points that shark was worth. And their task was to capture that shark on camera. And at the end, the team with the most points would certainly progress to the next location, because we had eliminations occur halfway through the show. And the team that got the most points at the very, very end, they won $50,000 for a charity of their choice. So it was just brilliant, because it was a chance to show all these different locations, all these different sharks. That was more than anything else. It was all the sharks. The name really is what you get. We didn't have great whites. We had we had some tigers and some hammers, great. But we also had all these weird little cat sharks and flat sharks and rays that never get this airtime, but show you this wide breadth of diversity in the shark world. And it's just fun. It's a good show. My role on it was sort of the host and sort of the expert. So I would jump between the boats, talking to the guys, asking how they were doing. I would set them like maybe some specific challenges. I'd say, okay, today, guys, I'm going to give you a prize. The first person to get a photograph of a turtle, I'll give them a tuna to use for their chumming or whatever. And it was sort of a bit of a Gordon Ramsay of a Hell's Sharky Kitchen, if you will. But that show really was awesome to be able to take such a unique concept, to have such a great outcome of we're going to give 50 grand to charity, and to get together just these shark fanatics to go wild about sharks. It was a total love-in terms of sharks and such. So yeah, I dearly hope we get to go and do it again, because certainly when we finished, the amount of people that were contacting me saying, I can dive, I want to come when you do series 2, and it's like, oh, calm down, well, so if we could get, go out again and have like an even bigger group of people, that would be brilliant. So
more knockouts, more tension.
Exactly. Knockout every time. That's what we want. But being able to show wildlife in a completely different way like that, and again, it's sort of a bit classic me in that it's not the normal, it's not the usual way you're being fed wildlife. It's a different way of getting in there. The animals were still front and center. The respect was still front and center. We had, although you won't see it on camera, we had some ridiculously strict rules. It was all very much above board in terms of that. There was no scripting in the results or nothing. The rules, they were massive, and the guys had to sign on for them and everything. So yeah, really good to be able to say, look, guys, you can do this with wildlife. You can champion all these shows. You can champion all these animals. You can make it exciting. You put a different spin on it. You can show different creatures. We don't just have to keep doing the same show again and again and again.
Yeah. And because it was like series one, first of a kind, how do you prep for that? Like, did you know exactly what you were going to do when you guys had the idea for it, or did that change like as you were filming?
Well, I didn't. It wasn't my idea. I was, and this is a bit of a name drop for you, I was in France recording this random little promo with John Cena, of all people, for Shark Week. And I was doing a tiny little bit in, this little machine. And I'd finished for the day, and I'd gone to this craft beer bar in Nice, because I find these things, it's the beard. It's like a dowsing rod. It leads me there. And I was there having a beer, thinking, it's been a pretty good day. Got to hang out with John Cena, do a bit of filming. That was a good laugh. And a mate of mine gave me a ring to say, "You're right, Fish. How you doing? Look, I've got this really weird show coming up. They were going to have just a narrator. They've now decided they want a presenter. They need someone who knows stuff about sharks and can think on their feet." I was like, "I put you forward for it." I was like, "Oh, brilliant, mate. Thanks very much. Sounds good." He said, "Are you up for it?" And I said, "Yeah, send me some details. Or, I'll have a look." But thinking, yes, I mean, it's shark related, and pretty much thumbs up straight away. The S word, I'm in. And that's how it started, and got back from Nice. Did a reading online with the production company, read a few lines, did a bit of chat, and 6 weeks later we were in the Maldives. It happened that quickly. And so I had no idea what I was going to do. I knew two things. I knew that my role was going to be as the host, that I'd be obviously hosting, and that I'd be diving and providing context on the locations. So I'd be saying, we're here because of this. This shark is important because of that, as well as saying, so how did you get on today? And but also I knew that once I signed on that line, the edit could turn it into whatever it wanted. And that is very, very key as a presenter for whatever you do. Once you sign onto that line, once it gets into the edit, it's out your hands. And if you're not happy with that, it's not for you. So I was, okay, well, let's see. So we get out to the Maldives. I was lucky that I knew a guy on the crew at the time, so I had someone to speak to. But also, as well as the host, I was kind of kept away from everyone. I was kept away from the contestants. The production crews were out doing their things. I had a different call time to everyone else. So the first couple of days were quite lonely, and there was a lot of tension there because what's going to happen? So they sent out the Netflix executive came out, and for the first filming session, they said, right, okay, here we go. They set up the teams and they said, right, Fish, you're going to tell them what's going on. And I don't work on a script.
Yeah.
I just make stuff up as I go. So I said, okay, give me, what bits do I need to hit? And he said, you need to say where you are. You need to say what they're doing. You need to explain this and you need to say this. I'm like, right, fine, cool. Okay. And I'm standing there and I remember looking around, because usually we're working on 2-camera setup most of the time. I'll usually have a main camera and then we'll have an additional camera. There were 4 cameras, 3 sound booms, a Netflix executive, and like, feeling feisty, and smashed it out. And we did that little bit there. I was still thinking, okay, I hope that went down well, not quite felt, trying to get, what's the energy hit me? Okay. And we did that. We then hopped out onto the boats for the diving, and they all went off on their boats, and we had our own boat, because again we were going to the different people and recording our own things and stuff. And the Netflix exec came out in our boat, and we came out onto the island of Fuvahmulah, and we had the island in the background, and they said, right, Fish, can you just record something about the island? I said, yeah, sure. How long do you want? And he said, give us like a 2-minute version. Like, fine. So I stood up, cut this piece of camera about the island, about the habitats, the sharks, and brilliant. Thanks very much. Just as the Netflix exec is off the back of the boat, chundering like a champion. I mean, it's flat calm, but when seasickness gets you, so I'm like, oh no, this couldn't go worse. It's like that was my chance to really. So he said, look, I can't deal with this. We've got to go back. And tiny island, so there's no worries. So we went back to the dock, and this was the bit where I knew I was safe, and I found my groove. Was he's getting off, and the director says to him, are you okay? So you got any other questions? And he wasn't talking to me, he was talking to the director, but he got off and he said, no, I got no worries. He knows exactly what he's doing, and then just walked off. And I was like, right, now we can get into this and do it. And then from there, we just all learned on the job. It was the first time we'd gone out there and did it. We filmed tons of stuff. In terms of, I filmed a load of stuff to the camera about the environments, about the sharks, about some shark biology, about diving. We you name it, we covered it, because we didn't know when it hit the edit what we were going to have. We knew obviously that the contestants were getting the photos, great, but how well would that translate onto camera? Would their relationships play more of a role? Would the conditions come in? This is the thing with, as we know, with diving, if the weather suddenly changes and they can't dive for a few days, where do you feel that in terms of the post? When I say post, I mean in post filming, for those of you that don't know the lingo. So we covered everything. And by the time we hit the final location, we were a seriously well-oiled team. But it did take some shaking down. And there were some bits that we tried initially that didn't work, that we got rid of. There were some bits that then did work and we found worked even better. And all things willing, going out and doing it again, we've got it nailed down. An absolute beauty. Will be, straight out the traps like a hot whippet.
And how long did it take to film? Obviously, the series is 8 episodes?
6 episodes.
6 episodes.
Yeah.
How long did it take to film those 6 episodes?
2 months.
2 months.
Yeah, so we flew out a couple of days before my birthday. So I ended up having my birthday in the Maldives, which is great. But
were you on your own?
No. We were in a crew, but Maldives is a dry country. So I couldn't have a beer. And I said it's the first time I'd had a dry birthday since I was 12. So, we flew out just at the start of June, and we came back at the start of September.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big trip. And did, Maldives, Japan, Australia, South Africa, Bimini, and the Galapagos Islands. It was a big trip. It was a cool trip. And saw some incredible sights. Got to go some great places and got to do some really good diving as well.
Did you have a favorite of those locations?
I think for me, it probably would have been the Galapagos, because as we were doing what we were doing, obviously the contestants had varying levels of skills in terms of either shark knowledge, or because they weren't all researchers, they were just shark fans, passionate people, charity, ocean charity workers, that kind of thing. So they weren't specialists. That's the point. You don't do Great British Bake Off with Tom Kerridge. You do it with Mrs. Miggins from down the road, because that's the exciting bit about it. So we had sort of this thing where they were seeing a lot of things for the first time. Obviously, myself and a lot of the camera operators, the underwater camera operators, we obviously had a lot more experience in terms of sharks, working with sharks, filming with sharks, and these locations. I've been to a couple of these locations before. So, the kids were getting really, really excited. But us, obviously, we were still excited, but we were still doing a job. And that's one thing I have found quite often, is that I'll go and do a dive on camera and I can come out afterwards and not even know what shark was there, because you're working so hard. You're thinking, well, the camera's there, the shark is there, I need to move myself here to get the shark to come there. If the shark comes this way, I'll need to move here. Where's the camera gone? The camera's now there. What's the shark's behavior? You're looking at so much stuff. You don't get a chance to just sit and watch. So you kind of go into a bit of an autopilot mode of working all these angles. And when you're in places like Bimini, which is gorgeous and lovely, it's it's so easy for you to be there and work the job that you kind of phase out a little. And I now make sure that whenever I'm doing some filming like that, that I at least during at one point stop, ignore everyone and watch the shark and just enjoy the moment for a minute before going, okay, where's the lead camera again? And what am I meant to be saying? And da-da-da-da-da. But when we hit Galapagos, the guys, the underwater operators and everyone of the experienced team, when we hit Galapagos and we dived there, all of us came out afterwards going, that was bonkers. Every dive was completely nuts. And for the people to come out, I mean, I've got a good lump of experience, but I was working with people who are far more experienced than I in terms of their shark underwater time and stuff. And we were all coming out and giggling like schoolgirls. And so that's really special when you've got the sort of the old uncrusties coming out and going, oh, that dive was so much fun. And you're like trying to get back in. That was, Galapagos was bonkers. It's just bonkers.
It's definitely on my bucket list.
It's bonkers. It just doesn't make any sense, and you just want to keep diving it. Yeah.
We're going to take a really quick break. So we're now going to hear from some of the sponsors of the Shark Trust podcast, and then make sure you do come back as we continue this conversation with Fish.
You better believe it.
This episode is brought to you by Surfears, the earplugs that let sound in but keep water out. Perfect for diving, surfing, or snorkeling. Surfears 4.0 feature a re-engineered fused core and mesh design, paired with tough silicone rubber, making them more durable than ever. They're designed with sustainability in mind, using materials like ocean plastic and recycled silicone. We've tried them and honestly, they're a game changer. Comfortable, eco-conscious, and they actually work. Thank you Surfears for sponsoring this episode and keeping our ears happy and healthy. Okay, welcome back. We're back in here with Fish. You just told us about your amazing experience in the Galapagos. What was your most memorable experience on all the sharks? Was it in the Galapagos or was it somewhere else? And was it like a certain species or was it the location itself?
That is a good question. Yeah, certainly the Galapagos, just for the environment, the conditions, and the number of sharks and their behaviors, really ticked a lot of boxes. It was like the full smorgasbord of sharky goodness. There was a particularly lovely hammerhead that came in Bimini that absolutely took my eye. And sometimes when you're diving with sharks, you can like lose yourself in it. And she was gorgeous. She was like big and fat, and she was quite light as well, really clean. So she'd obviously been deep, and she was beautiful. Yeah, that was magic. But it's all the little dudes as well, when we were in Port Elizabeth in South Africa, you're diving there on the reefs there, their little reefs are covered in fish that are so, you're doing your safety stop and there's a fish here looking at you along with his 50 other mates staring at you. So, okay. And where we were was obviously a bit of a nursery area for juvenile sand tiger sharks. So you had these sort of meter-long sand tigers, just these clean, smooth little things just darting around all over the place. Not to mention all like the puff adder sharks and knocking around. Though the Sharknado in Japan was a good laugh. That was quite funny. The funniest thing about that was we did the dive, and there were obviously sharks everywhere. Great dive, loved it. Myself and my mate came out, got back on the boat, got back to land, and the rest of the productions disappeared. Everyone. And we're there going, they've all gone. So there's one guy left, and in Japan, the same number of people in Japan speak English as the same number of people in England speak Japanese. All right, it's not just we can get there with a bit of spam. No. It's a massive cultural divide. It is going to a different planet. So there's one guy left. who's just packing tiny bits up into one of our support vans, and we go over and say, where's the rest? Thinking this guy's not going to speak a word of the Queen's. And he turns round and he's like, oh yeah, no worries, lads. He'd obviously worked in like Australia for a while. He had a really good English. It's like, I don't know why they've gone, but yeah, I'll sort you out. If he hadn't been there, we'd still be at that dive site now, just sitting and waiting. But they had to rush off and do something, but it was quite funny. I think I keep coming back to that hammerhead. I say the bull sharks were awesome, the tiger sharks were awesome, but there is something about hammerheads in clear water that there's something about them. They are all sharks are sports cars, but they are like the Lamborghini or Bugatti Veyron or whatever, I don't know my cars, really awesome sports cars. Yeah, I can see it now. It was stunning, and it played ball as well, because hammers, I've dived with them before for filming, and they can be tricky, not in any way that they start getting spicy, but they are often very, very kind of wary. And as I was saying before about, you're thinking, okay, where's the camera? Where's the shark? We need this shot. You would have had a prep before you went in where it's like, okay, this is the story this needs to tell. Where do I need to be? While at the same time knowing you're working with a wild animal, it'll do whatever it wants. And a lot of hammers can just stay far away from humans. They'll stay at a distance, or they'll take ages to come in. And then by the time they're close enough, you don't have much dive time left. But this girl, she just came in and, they swim across the sand, like that far off the sand. This 4 meter long hammerhead is that far off the sand, the Bahamian sand, like dust, and there isn't a single lick coming up off it. The sand is flat, and it's not a ripple, and this just beast comes in, takes the corner. Oh, something else. They are, oh yeah, okay, that. That.
You're not even the first person who's spoken about the hammerheads in Bimini. So when we spoke to Steve Batchel in Series 1, his favourite individual shark that he's ever seen was a grey hammerhead in Bimini called Gaia. And then Lou went and dived with it as well.
Oh, very nice.
Right after.
Yeah, that was for the Bahamas Living with Sharks documentary, which you can find on our YouTube.
Living with Sharks documentary on YouTube in the Bahamas by the Shark Trust. Living with Sharks. YouTube in the Bahamas.
Link in the description.
Link is in the description.
Now, while we're talking about the sharks, and I've got to bring this up, because when I was watching the show, each of the sharks get a different amount of points, right? So they get the people competing, go in the water. If they get a picture of it, they might get like 3 points, 4 points, and stuff like that. Who decides the points?
One of the executive producers is a guy called Mike Clarkson, who is a fabulous individual who is essentially a savant. And he will sit down and do the full matrix, Jeff Stelling, taking in the information. And it was basically his job to look at all these areas that they were diving, find out all the species that were there, find out from dive companies, how often you see this here, how often you see that there, taking in his own shark knowledge as well, because he's a savant. He's a world-leading reptile specialist, but he knows so much about all these different creatures. And so it was his decision to say, right, well, we know you're going to see 10 tiger sharks in the Maldives. They're a point each. But if you see a tiger shark in the Galapagos, well, they're not going to be there when we're there. So it's now 50 points. And that, I think, was, again, one of the really clever things about the show, in that the same shark could have been on 3 or 4 different score sheets and have different points values in each one, because it was what were your chances of seeing it there. And then obviously the cryptic sharks as well, like the angel shark, that's, even if it's common, it's very, very hard to spot. So it was Mike, I believe, that made up all the point scoring, and good on him, because that's a task that's a task nobody wants. But we did also have as well, if anyone found a shark that wasn't on the scorecard, it was an immediate 50 points. Or was it 50 points? I can't remember. If you found a shark that wasn't on the scorecard, you got just a chunk of points straight away as a sort of well done kind of thing.
Okay. Oh, I can't have a go at him because he did a lot of work.
Why were you going to have a go? Do it.
It was.
Do it.
I think it was episode 2. The guitar fish.
Yeah.
21 points, but then an epaulet shark was 30. I'm pretty sure. And I just think it was critically endangered guitar fish. I just feel like it.
There are loads of them around Heron, though. That's the thing, though. There are quite a few of them around Heron.
Yeah.
I'll feed it back to him and tell him to do better next time.
Yeah. If he needs some help,
yeah,
I'm there.
Absolutely. I'll let him know. Sort your life out, mate. Yeah.
But the rest of the points I thought were quite good because some of the, like, I know it was based on how common it was to see them, but it was nice to see, you know, like when we talk about the big five, like the tiger sharks only getting a couple of points, but then there was like some cat shark, something like that was like a higher amount, and I was like, oh yes.
Yeah, again, a chance to showcase all the sharks, and that's what we did from big to small, because they've all got a role to play. So many of them. I mean, we know these characteristic megafauna around the planet, and great, they're, you know, the front men of the band, but we need to also support the drummers of the band, the bassists of the band, the roadies of that band, because if they're not all working together, you don't get the music. No, that's what I do. Analogies is my thing. Or is it similes? One or the other. I'm not completely sure what the difference between simile and analogy is. I'm a marine biologist, damn it, not a literaturist. What's someone call it?
Yeah, we're going to say that.
Yeah, I'm a marine biologist, damn it, not a literature.
We'll quote that.
Quote it. Yeah.
When you travel to all these places, we see in the show the competitors like going down in their pairs, diving in these places, and obviously they're being filmed by cameras. When we see you're on a beach, on a boat. Did you get to dive in every place as well?
Yes. So I would dive most days. Sometimes I dived shadowing competitors, and sometimes I just dived on locations looking for these sharks anyway. So this comes back to this idea of we didn't know what the show would actually physically look like. So it was that kind of scenario where if all the competitors, because they had to tell, each boat had a producer on it, and they had to tell the producers where the dive sites they were going to, because you couldn't have two teams on one dive site. And that gave them an idea of what they were getting. And the producers obviously speak to each other and say, so-and-so's just come up and they've found this, or they haven't found anything, whatever. So there'd be scenarios where, they're all going for tiger sharks. Say they all want to get some tiger sharks. We need a shot of some eagle rays. Okay. I would go then with Devon on our boat, and we'd go and try and find that animal. We'd go, well, actually, this would be a good place for it, or we know there are lemon sharks here. We need that as footage. And again, there would be times when we'd just go and dive and talk about a bit of everything. I'd talk about the diving, because obviously we had limits on their dive time. We had limits on their depth. Yeah. So I'd do like pieces underwater where... depending on where we were, they'd have like the topography, and I'd be explaining, okay, so here we've got this drop off, and or here it's nice and shallow, so the divers can do this, to try and explain all different parts of it. So in the final cut, you only see me, I think, underwater once or twice, but I was underwater most days, because we were covering all these different bits and pieces. And the best thing for me was when I would go on the boat before the team would come up. So they'd say, so-and-so's gone down there 10 minutes before they come over. So I'd go over and I'd be hiding on the boat, and they'd get out and they'd all be like, oh, yeah. And then I'd like come around the corner with a cup of tea and I'm like, you all right, guys, how are we doing? And they're like, oh God, what are you know, and then I'd suddenly jump on them for an interview. Or I'd get them underwater as well. They'd say, so-and-so's just gone down, come over. And we'd go over and I'd get on my kit and I'd dive underwater and follow them at a distance. And again, I'd be talking to the camera and be saying, you know, okay, well, there's a current coming in here. We can feel it. We can see it in, you know, the shape of these corals and stuff. So they're going to have to sort of doing that. Yeah, that background like narration. And in the end, we didn't need it. So, you know, it got left on the cutting room floor, but it is there. There'll be a whole documentary of just my bearded face. Well, my beard sticking out from underneath of a full face dive mask. But yeah.
Yeah, I was like, you could probably make like 3 other shows.
Yeah.
Just from it.
Well, I believe the production company has suggested that, look, we've already got this footage. Why don't you just let us edit it? So yeah, there might be a All the Sharks documentary compendium coming soon. Who knows?
And when you're under the water and people take the competitors taking the pictures, I know there's someone with them taking pictures. Then is there someone checking that they're not taking a picture of the same shark, but trying to, like, the shark might have swum off over there, and then it's kind of come back and they've taken a picture. How do you make sure no one gets like double points?
There was two ways that they combated that. For one, the sharks would top out in terms of numbers. You could only get a certain number of a single species of shark before any more photos of it just were worth nothing.
Okay.
So you couldn't just sit there and spam one shark the entire time and keep adding up low points. Eventually, I can't remember if it was, I think it was 30. I think if they got 30 images of one shark, that was it. It didn't class anymore. And, over 3 days of diving, you'd get that as well. So the other thing that you never would have seen was the day we had a down day between their final dive day and then filming all the wrap-up sequences.
Yeah.
And in that down day, the production team, who worked so hard, the production team would sit in a room and just murder themselves in front of laptops with all the SD cards, and each producer would take a team's SD cards and would go through every single image. And because they were... we had, like I say, Mike Clarkson, who I just mentioned, was in there. A guy called Devin Massin was in there as well, who's another good mate of mine. They knew their sharks, so they could see, the fin markings are the same on this one. Well, because, of course, that's how we identify sharks, isn't it? So that kind of stuff would just be, no. So there was, and anything, the rules were as well that you had to be able to see on the picture, not so much that it was a shark, but if you couldn't immediately say, oh, it's going to be this species or that species, it got binned. So if it was just like the outline of what you say, well, it's it'll be a type of requiem shark, but it could have been a black tip or a silver tip or no, bin it. If you can't look at it and go, that's between this and that, or that's this shark, and I just need to make sure they haven't taken a photo of it again, it got binned.
Wow.
So it forced them to not just go. They had to try and get good shots, and they also knew as well that if they kept taking the same shark, they were wasting their own time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they and I felt so sorry for them because they would start first thing in the morning at breakfast, and everyone else has got a day off at this point. So the topside camera crew would usually go out and get footage from the surrounding area. The underwater camera team would start sorting their kit out or whatnot. I would have, freedom to do whatever I wanted. And then there's these guys, 6 of them, stuck in a room with the lights off, just staring at computers in like the Maldives, just clicking like, yep. And just because it was all absolutely legit and by the book.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single or maybe. It was, that is it. Cast iron, no problems.
If I was on there, I was going to be like, I could like sneak around, maybe sneakily take a picture of the same shark, but from a different angle. And that'd be my tactic, but
it wouldn't work. They'd find you out, mate. They'd find you out. But you never know. We get the second series. You can give it a go. Give it a pop.
I think Paul and Caroline will get ahead of me. Now, during it, we've not spoken about much about the competitors themselves, but I know Dan, because Dan's one of our Shark Trust ambassadors, and Sarah also does a podcast I listen to, which is That's Just Wild. Give it a listen to. Spoiler alert to anyone, if you've not watched all the sharks and you don't want to know about winners or anything like that, skip the next couple of minutes. But you should have watched it by now. It's been out for like almost a year.
Yeah.
I wanted them to win, partly because I just like them as people. Probably also because they're English, so I automatically want to vote for them.
Good bit of xenophobia. Yeah.
They did terribly on the first 2 episodes.
Did terribly on the first 4 episodes.
4 episodes.
Yeah.
They were really... How did they turn it around? Like, what?
No.
Firstly, can you tell us what it was like watching them make a lot of mistakes sometimes? And then how did they turn it around?
It was very difficult watching all the competitors. making mistakes or doing things that we wouldn't do. Because as I say, that they were all shark fans, but not shark experts. So they didn't have the same level of knowledge that the underwater camera operators had, that I had, that and we would sit there being like, no, don't do it, don't do it, no, don't do it, oh no, never mind. So it was that kind of a scenario, but that was the whole point. They were meant to go out there and do what they wanted to do. Dan and Sarah, who are both absolutely lovely people, they will be the first to tell you they don't know how they did what they did. They survived by the skin of their teeth. And obviously we didn't have our first elimination until South Africa.
Yeah.
So the first couple of episodes, I think they were last or at least third.
Yeah.
And then got to South Africa and they just had a blinder. I think they even won one episode, which they were as surprised as everyone else. But yeah, it was good to see them. It was good to see everyone sort of doing what they were doing. Everyone had their own methods of working, and there was while we still wanted, in terms of the show, I say we, the production, while the production still wanted in terms of the show to get their passion and their stories across, there wasn't an urge for it to become like another social, TV experiment. It wasn't about them. It was about the sharks.
Yeah.
So while it was great to be behind the scenes and see them having these little meltdowns, this is all, all the teams, having these little meltdowns, having their problems, not speaking to each other, that kind of thing. On camera, yeah, they all worked so hard to achieve what they did. But I just don't know how. Certainly in Bimini, Sarah pulled a blinder because she'd been there before, so she knew some secret spots.
Yeah.
And it's only fair to point out that many of the divers had dived in those areas before independently. So, and of course, they all had a chance to do their own homework. But a bit of home field advantage helped out there. I think more than anything else, it was the huge amount of on-screen tea that they had that helped Dan and Sarah get on. They were well known for having a cup of tea, and I can't complain because one of my, I say a diva demand, it was given to me, but I didn't complain, was production bought me a big, massive box of Yorkshire tea bags to take around the world with me. Other tea bags are available. And so, yeah, I'd quite often be sitting there, having tea in the background, multiple teas, and they're having teas. And it's like, good stuff. Stiff upper lip and all that. They earned to be to the final. I don't know how, but they certainly had the right attitude for it.
Yeah, I think they were also shocked. You could see it when, like, one of the other competitive pairs got
knocked out.
The show knocked out. They were kind of like, we're still in.
Yeah.
What?
In a way, that gave them the one of the best kind of attitudes for the show, because Dan and Sarah really were there for the love of the game.
Yeah.
They weren't, obviously everyone wanted to win and take that coin home for the marine charity of their choice. But because Dan and Sarah kept getting a reprieve, it was a fresh new day every day. And that came across in just how they acted, how they were. Anyone that was on their boat would always be having a laugh. So, credit where credit's due. But if you got both of them in here and put a gun to their heads and say, how did you do it? They wouldn't know either. None of us did. But somehow the maths worked out for them.
Yeah. It was the one where where they're under the water and Sarah and Dan are there, and then Dan just disappears. And Sarah's like, Dan? And he's like, I flooded the housing, my camera.
Yeah, Dan did have a couple of interesting moments with his camera, but I suppose that's a perennial problem for any camera operator. Yeah.
I've done it with my GoPro. I had like a little housing thing. I'd go for it and I went snorkeling. Turns out the camera I'd forgotten to switch it on the entire time. Yeah. But then I also hadn't fastened it up properly and I just broke it.
Double whammy. Nice.
Terrible.
Go big or go home.
Yeah. Now, they didn't win it, sadly, from my point of view. when it started, like when you met them all in the first go, did you have a feeling of who you thought might win?
We all pretty much thought the Shark Docs were going to win.
And that they smashed it.
Their attitude was exceptional. From minute one, day one, they were very rarely out of the water, because the rules were that you obviously had your limited number of tanks and your dive time associated with that. You then had to be on land and off gassing for a minimum of an hour before you could dive another dive, so that, because safety was paramount across the whole show. But that didn't mean you couldn't snorkel or just stand there with your phone taking photos. And I know that a couple of the competitors got points from times when they were just walking along the beach and saw something shallow in the water and took a photo. And as long as it was identifiable as that shark or that ray, it was worth. But it didn't matter where it came from; they had it. And the Shark Docs were permanently grafting, permanently in the water. And I'm surprised they didn't grow gills, actually, from the amount of time they spent in there. But I'm trying to remember now. Someone on the crew did something like they did a cumulative points total, and because after the initial expulsion, once the land sharks went in South Africa, we reset the points.
Yeah.
To jeopardize everything, so there was no one was safe, and the Shark Docs were not happy about that. So that was a little twist. They were so far ahead because they'd just been smashing it, and fair play to them. They earned it every single. They were grinding so hard, but again, like everyone that took part, they were just good people. They weren't there trying to win themselves money. They were there because they love these animals. I mean, the Shark Docs themselves are doctors working directly in research with sharks. So the cause was good. So when you've got that kind of truth underneath it, everyone's moving in the right direction with the right kind of purpose. It negates the backstabbing and the, we see some horrible things on game shows, don't you, where someone turns somebody in at the last minute and all that kind of jazz. No, this was about the sharks, and thankfully, from credits to credits, from episode 1 to episode 6, that's where it stayed. And I think anyone that does watch it, I think the final finishing montage really summed up the show, and certainly summed up what the production wanted to get from the show. And I'm extremely, extremely privileged to have been involved, and even more so to have the production come to me and say, what do you think of this? How we can put a spin on that. So that's great to be able to get then some of my passion and some of my feeling into it. But everyone there from top to bottom was there for the sharks.
I absolutely love that. And you mentioned a few times, what's next? Like, is there a series 2? Have those conversations happened, or are you allowed to say that?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers from the show have been really excellent. And in terms of its global reach, it's had a great completion rate in terms of people that started watching it, finishing it. I think it's got a near perfect completion rate, which is fantastic. After its first quarter, it had been viewed by 20 million people. It was top 10 in 60 countries. It was, I think, number 1 in kids in multiple countries for weeks and weeks. So it's done really, really well. Obviously, times shift and change. The concept is great. We know there's a market for it. And I know the production company is still fighting for going out again. And the nice thing is we've got this piece of paper that shows just how successful it was. So they will do their thing. I certainly would be very, very happy to get my hosting beard back on again and be dressed in a variety of different clothings, because I wasn't allowed to wear my usual shorts and T-shirts. I had to have a more, worldwide appeal. So that's in the background. For me, myself, I obviously have fingers in pies. I think we all do if we're in this kind of game. I've got some fingers in pies. I've got some meetings coming up, and I've got a little bit of filming in, I think, about 2 weeks for Discovery for Shark Week this year. And then, yeah, other than that, I'm keeping myself busy bothering bats, badgers, and newts. And beavers, occasionally. Wow. Well, not yet. I haven't bothered any beavers yet, but I intend to. It's coming.
And we like to... So in Series 2, we're asking basically the same question at the end of it. So this is from Kat, who's our Living with Sharks project lead. And it's, how do we plan ahead and manage recovering shark populations so that coexistence is as harmonious as possible from your perspective?
We keep talking about sharks. That's what we do. People need to know that there are more than just the big five, and that they are all around us, that they are part of this planet, that they are realistically the keepers of this planet. I mean, they were there before trees. So it needs to expand beyond, great whites. It needs to expand beyond this media fascination with shark attacks and stuff. And I think that's happening. But people need to know that there are, over 500 species of sharks and rays, and there are constantly more being found all the time as well, that we're just describing and learning more about, and they fill all these holes and all these gaps, and they're doing a job that no one else in the ocean can do. So we just need to keep talking about them, and maybe we move our focus away from the large and mighty to the small and beautiful. But regardless, if we want to live with sharks, then we need to keep talking about sharks. Not just some sharks, not just one or two sharks, but all the sharks. I had to get that last bit in there.
Good. That was good. And then we like to end the show focusing back on why we love sharks, which is basically what we've done all episode, to be honest. Fish, can you tell us what you think is the overall best shark or ray, and why? What would be the max points ever on all the sharks if you got to choose the scoring?
Oh my God. That is a tricky beast. You know what? This is... I'm going to play to my own here, which is fine. I'm gonna be biased. For me, I just love the tasseled wobbegong. It's just such a brilliantly bonkers animal, and it's got a great name. It's got a great look. It's got a good beard. We've learned so much more about its predation techniques. Its ambush predator. It's the tasseled wobbegong. And also the nice benefit is that it would be a tricky beast as well so cryptic. So it would do well. So for me, the tasseled wobbegong would be, I think well up there.
How many points would you give it?
Oh, at least 45. 40, 45, 40? 45. 45.
Nice.
Yeah, because he's not so much of a shafty and he's like 50.
Yeah.
Just 45.
And do you have any last minute advice if people are listening, watching this, and they're like, I want to be the next Blowfish?
Oof.
What advice would you give them?
Grow a beard. So the beard is key.
I'm trying.
Yeah. What advice? Don't be the next Blowfish. Be the first you. That's my advice. That I haven't tried to be... I have been told many, many times in my presenting career to be more like this or be more like that. And there are plenty of wildlife presenters out there who basically just amalgamate into one. You can't really tell the difference other than some of them have got different names. Otherwise, they'll look the same, they'll do the same. I've never wanted to be the next David Attenborough or the next Steve Irwin. I just wanted to be the first me. So if someone is out there and they want to tell the story of these animals, then my first thing I would say is decide if you want to use the animals to make yourself famous, or decide if you want to make them famous using yourself. If it's the latter, good on you. And then just be the best you can be. Your natural strengths, your natural abilities, the things that you do the best, even though they might not be being in front of camera, maybe it's writing, maybe it's podcasting, maybe it's shorts on Instagram or whatever. If that is what you're best at, do that. Because if you have a natural talent for something, you're already streets away from everyone else. So don't bother. That's why you don't see me doing stuff that I'm useless at, regardless of how it might expand my reach. The whole point is that it's about the animals. It's not about me. If I want to be famous, I can start an OnlyFins account, put my feet on camera.
Yeah.
I'd rather the sharks be famous than me. I'm not interesting. I'm just loud. I'm very hairy, except up top where it's a little bit ironic. And I just want people to love sharks or find sharks as interesting as I do. I don't care if people find me interesting. It's not my story. It's their story. I'm not using them to get my face on the billboard. Their face should be on the billboard. So I would say if you want to do that, and just be the best you can be, and think how can you make them famous, not how they can make you famous.
That's good. I think you should start a motivational YouTube channel.
Okay.
I'll listen to it every morning before I come to work.
Will I be allowed to swear on it?
Get
up, you lazy so-and-so. Get out of bed now. I've already had 4 cups of tea, come on.
Get up now. Yeah, great. And if people wanted to see more of your work, maybe they've got a question, they're like, oh, I want to ask him this. Where can they find you? Like, have you got socials, website? I'll put links to all of this in the description.
I do, but I mean, does anyone really want to? Yeah, you can get hold of me if you're so inclined, and I assume hellishly bored if you want to speak to me. But yes, I've got a website, the blowfish.co.uk. You can find me on Instagram. I think I'm Big Popper Fish. It's some Burke with a beard, you know. But yeah, you can find me. I'm sure you'll put the things in there. But yeah, unless I've got something decent to say, then, you know, it's a nice, easy nothing. Just and then something good, and then nothing. So you know.
Sometimes that's the best, though.
It's like Christmas, mate. Comes once a year, but it's hellish good when it does.
Fish, thank you again for joining us on the podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure. Going from reading about your stuff in like 2015 when I learned about shark conservation to getting to interview on this podcast. It's been amazing.
Oh, thank you very much.
So thank you
for having me. Yeah, sure. Very good of you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, please comment your favorite bits. If you've got a question you want answered, comment it below. We'll try and get it answered. Give us a share. Give us a rating. 5 stars would be great. And if you want to help with our conservation work, you can donate, become a member, adopt a shark. We've got a variety of shark adoptions. You can wear some very cool Shark Trust merch. You can literally wear your love. We've got some badges on the beard. And thank you again to our sponsors of Series 2, which is Surf Ears. If you go in cold water or any water, if you're surfing, diving, anything like that, protect your ears. I've got surfer's ears because I didn't wear earplugs. My ears are really not good. Please protect your ears. It's definitely worth it. Thank you to Revolution Studio for all of our podcast artwork. Thank you to Louis Hogan, who's currently off camera. All video and sound editing is done by him. The research and planning for this series is done by Kat Gordon and myself. I've been your host, Mark Stokes-Packer, and you've been listening to the Shark Trust podcast.